A couple of weeks ago, I did a YouTube short and actually a TikTok video as well. 60 seconds, how to store your car over the winter months. And I got loads and loads of comments, good, bad, indifferent. But it's obviously generated lots and lots of interest and discussion. And many of the comments were explaining why you need to do certain things and asking for more detail. Hence this video. So this is going to be a little bit more detail about the right way of storing a car for the winter months. So this is not for a few weeks. This is not for a year. For me, this is ideal storage for 2, 3, 4 months during the worst of the winter weather. If you don't want to store your car, this ain't for you. This is not about whether you should or you shouldn't. If you own the car, it's your right to decide what you want to do with it. And for many people, if it's their pride and joy and it's a second or third car, they will store the car, like I do. The other issue is if you haven't got a garage, then this ain't the video for you either. You haven't got many options. Outdoor covers, personally, I don't like. They trap moisture and condensation in the car, which can lead to corrosion and rust forming. It doesn't let the car breathe properly. And unless it's absolutely nailed down and tight with soft inner lining as well, you're likely to mark the paintwork somewhere on the car. I have experience of that, and I would never do it again. So my view, if you haven't got a garage, you want to store it for a few months, and I wouldn't go any longer than that outside, is clean it, wash it, put a really good wax coat, ideally ceramic coat it, and leave it untouched. But if you have got a garage and you want to store it, these are my top tips. It's Rich here with this week's Fast and Fun. The garage itself is pretty much what you get given when you buy the house, unless you're lucky enough to build your own garage. But there's certain things you can certainly do. Key to this is making the garage as damp-free, as moisture-free as possible. So walls, get them sort of damp-proofed. This has been, although that wall has got damp coming through, so that needs to be resealed again. And the floor as well. So focus on the floor. This is just bare concrete, far from ideal, but it's what I inherited 6 months ago, and it's something that I want to do in 2024 is get the concrete floor resealed. So you want to seal it and ideally put some sort of garage matting on, rubber matting on, and that just gives an air gap then for the car to sit on. So as damp free as possible. You can use things like dehumidifiers and heating and all that sort of good stuff, depends how far you want to go. But the main, just make sure it is watertight as best as possible. The other thing to do, and I see it all the time, and I had a colleague of mine who suffered this, is keep the garage as clean and junk-free as possible. And the reason I say that is because I had a colleague that had shelving and bikes and all this all up around the car, and something fell off one of the shelves, hit the bonnet of the car, down onto the wing, and did hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of damage. So I know it's not always easy to do, but just don't store it with boxes and foreign objects all around the car, because you're just asking for trouble. If you can, keep the garage as minimalistic as possible, because you reduce that risk. Before you put the car in the garage, the other thing to do, and it goes without saying really, is make sure the car is clean, washed, and most importantly, and this is really important, is dry. So don't go in, wash your car, and then park it straight in the garage and don't touch it again. So, and it's not just about the external and the surface that's dry, but also under the car, the wheels, the brakes, the suspension, etc. What I normally do is I've washed it, I've dried it, I've done it on a good day that I can take it up the road a few miles, bring it back a few miles, get all that exhaust, moisture free, and then I've got an air blower. Actually, you can get them on Amazon. Mine's actually for pets, but you can buy them for cars, but they're the same price for pets, only they're half price. As soon as you put a car on it, it doubles the price. £70, £65, £70 for one of those. go around the car, go around all the fins, all the brakes, etc. Get it completely dry before you put the car away. It's also good to give it a wax as well, which I do on after most washes and dries. Wax the car. I mean, ceramic coat it if you can, but it's just about protecting that finish. Get the car as clean as tidy as possible. You don't want to be storing it dirty, and then 4 months later you come to open it up, start it, and everything's crudted up with dried, caked in dirt, filth and grime. Now, the next tip did cause lots of discussion on the previous short video. Fuel. Fill the car with fuel. I always have, and that prevents air in the fuel tank. It prevents, with air, you will get condensation in the tank, and that prevents rust and corrosion forming inside the fuel tank, what you don't want. Now, I know many modern cars now have moved to plastic tanks. It's something I still do. I'll continue to do it. People will say about fuel going off. It does not go off if it's left for a few months. Super unleaded E5 9899 RON fuel does not go off. I've never had an issue, and I've stored cars up to sort of 6 months long. If I was storing it for over a year, probably different. But for a few months, full tank of fuel, and there'll be no issues with fuel degradation over that period of time. So the next thing you need to do is prevent flat spotting on your tyres. Tyres will lose PSI, will lose pressure over time, certainly over 2 or 3 months. And if a car is not moved, it can cause flat spotting on the bottom tyre. Parking it on concrete, as I say, is not ideal. Ideally, this is where rubber matting, or at my old garage, I used to actually park it on bits of carpet, actually, just to take the tyre off the hard floor. But overinflate your tyres, that will help. Normally, are in and around 5 psi above what they normally are. And you can certainly check them periodically. And if you've got space, and this is a really good tip, if you've got space front and back of the car, is ideally just slowly push the car backwards or forwards every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, or perhaps every month, sort of 2 foot backwards, and then rotate it forward a foot and then another foot, and just keep these tyres from not staying in the same spot. Sometimes you haven't got that flexibility because of garage size, but if you have, move it, definitely overinflate it, and if you can, don't do what I've done, get it off the concrete floor. Also, make sure your handbrake's left off. You don't need it on in the garage. If you put the handbrake on, you're going to bind the brakes onto the discs, and you're going to have a right mother to get them unlocked come the day you decide to start the car, especially after you've washed it and cleaned it. Even though you've dried it, there'll still be a bit of moisture, and that will create a little bit of friction and locking. So always leave your handbrake off. And also, when you come to move the car, you don't need to get in the car because the handbrake's off and it's out of gear, and you just push it slightly backwards and push slightly forwards. You can also leave your windows just slightly down, not far, probably about 1 inch. And that just lets a bit of air circulate through the car. Some people, I used to do this, I don't now because I've never really suffered from it, but dehumidifier boxes, the disposable ones, you can put in the inside, and that's just, if any moisture does get in and inside the car, it just traps any moisture forming on any of your materials and soft bits within inside the car. The other subject that generated lots of interest is, what do you do with your battery? Some people said disconnect your battery. I wouldn't advise doing that. Especially cars built in the last 20 or so years have a lot of systems that are running even when the car is dormant or gone to its sleep mode, alarms, immobilisers, clocks, etc, etc. Don't connect a battery trickle charger. That is not good. You'll end up overcharging your battery. What you need is a battery monitor or battery tenderer. And I use one of these called a CTEC MXS 5.0, and these are great bits of kit, about £70, and they do two main things. One is they will just check and monitor the battery voltage. And you can quickly look down and I can see this battery is good, it's green, it's not doing anything. All it's doing is just monitoring the voltage. The second thing it does is if it detects a drop in voltage, then it will put a pulse charge in there and trickle it back up to the correct voltage. So maintaining that voltage and an optimum battery. Really, really good bits of kit. They're clever bits. They can be compatible for AGM batteries, compatible for bike batteries. You can put it onto a recondition cycle as well, which is like a 3-day cycle it goes through to actually bring a battery back from the dead, if it's possible to, with one of these. And it also compensates for things like temperature, etc. So they're really smart bits of kit, really good bits of kit. And what it will do, it'll just sit there and it'll keep your battery in tip-top condition for when you come back in a few months' time to start it, you disconnect it, and the battery is ready to go. And the other thing that I always do is I cover the car up. You don't have to do this. The main reason I do it is garages by their very nature are dusty, and if you leave a car uncovered for 2 or 3 months over the winter, I will guarantee that you will have a lot of dust, debris on the car, and you'll end up probably having to wash the car before you can take it out. So for me, nothing special about these. Soft, elasticated bottoms, that's all you need. These are Cosmos, I think they're called, from Amazon in the UK. £35, £40 will get you one of these, multiple of colours. You don't need bespoke covers at all for me. Cheap is cheerful, and I've got these across various cars. That's it. The car is all now stored away. There's nothing you need to do, and it's good now for a few months during the worst, harshest of the winter. What not to do is start the car every week or every couple of weeks. Why not? Because if you do, it is the starting procedure when the oil is thick and cold and will not lubricate properly. So it's in those first early few minutes of any engine start does most of the damage. So if that's the case, why go through that every few weeks, every week, every 2 weeks, inducing that wear unnecessarily into your engine? So your car will be absolutely fine for the winter months. Don't start it. If you do start it, don't let it sit idling for 10, 15 minutes and then switch off. If you do start it, take it out, be gentle until all your temperatures, including coolant and oil. And if you haven't got an oil temperature, please remember oil normally takes twice as long as coolant. Get your oil up to pressure before you start using the revs, and then use it and enjoy it. And after 3-4 months of winter hibernation for your car or cars, when you take them out, when you get to Easter and the better, warmer temperatures, and you take these cars back out of storage, wow, they feel like new cars if you only do it for that reason. So there we go. They are my must-do tips for how to store a car over the winter months. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't done. And if you agree, disagree, or want to add any further comments, please drop them below. Thanks for watching, guys. Another video next week.